Hi everyone and welcome for another video on Apitherapy. This time we'll be talking about the connection between the 5 elements of traditional Chinese medicine and the 5 main bee products. So this is a super interesting topic. In Apitherapy it's very useful because that connection helps us to understand how a certain product will work, what is its mechanism of action and so on. So extremely interesting. I first heard of those connections first by a book from a French author, author Claudette Rénal-Cartabas. The book is in French only, I'm very sorry, that I know of at least, and in English it would be Healing with the Bees, the title of the book. But for now, it's only in French, and so it's a really good book, very good source on this, and I heard after this from a really good friend and actually a real reference in apitherapy, Dr. Stefan Sangaciu, and he's from Romania. He really helped us a lot to establish a good basis of apitherapy in Canada. He's one of the best speaker for apitherapy. He actually taught and brought apitherapy in many different countries. He's quite amazing, very involved in the world of apitherapy. So he also wrote a book actually with the collaboration of the author Claudette Rénal-Cartabas, and the book is In Good Health with the Bees. And that book I know is being translated in English. I don't think it's yet available in English, but translation is on the way. So it's a really good reference, and in that book you will actually find a reference to many different diseases and health conditions, and they are actually divided into the 5 different elements of traditional Chinese medicine. Very interesting, and he gave in the book a lot of indication on each disease, how to treat with bee products, what could be used, what is the best product to use, and using a lot this point of view of traditional Chinese medicine. So really good reference, that book, for that topic that we'll be developing today. And myself, I'm not a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine, but I started learning about apitherapy with a really great friend of mine. And he had a doctorate in traditional Chinese medicine, because yes, in Canada you can have a doctorate in traditional Chinese medicine. And so we talked a lot about this. So I have a good idea of how those connections work. So I'm not a specialist, but I'll still share with you some really good points of connection there. So let's get going. First, let's start with the element wood. Yeah, because traditional Chinese elements are different from Ayurveda elements, and different also from those 4 usual elements of fire, air, water, and earth. In Ayurveda, there's those 4 plus ether, and in traditional Chinese medicine, you have wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. So they are different elements. This is normal. So let's start with wood. So when we think about the element wood, we're thinking about an energy that is growing. A lot of movement because it's growing. It's using energy to grow, and it develops, it grows, it's pushing all the time to grow. And what bee product will correspond perfectly with this, will match this energy perfectly? It's actually pollen, because pollen is a complete source of food that is used to grow. And when you think about it really specifically, pollen is still it's just like wood. It's just still like a plant. It's still like part of a plant, because pollen is fertilizing the flowers. So the flowers will then develop into a fruit, have seeds. The seeds are will go in the dirt, and then they will grow. So all this starts from the pollen. So it's that energy that will be growing all the time, and that will keep developing and growing. and it has all the nutritional value that we need, all of it: protein, carbohydrates, lipids, also vitamins, minerals, probiotic, prebiotic, name it. It has pretty much everything we need to live in terms of food, so it helps us to grow, and be healthy while we're growing, and we're also repairing our body. We use all those nutritional elements that are in pollen. So you see that connection? It's so clear, so obvious between those two. So now the element wood is growing, and that creates a lot of fuel for fire. So the next element will be fire. And fire, if you think about bee products, of course what comes in our mind first is bee venom. Of course, it's just like fire. When we got stung, of course we feel warmth and there's panic. Just like when there's a fire, we always panic. And in our body it's the same. Lots of reaction. The blood flow in that area is increasing a lot. Even the lymph is circulating more. And that touches the heart, the circulation system in our body. So this is really, really important. And the bee venom is used, of course, the bees use it to protect themselves, but we can use it as humans to actually heal some diseases. But again, this, in some countries, you're not allowed to do this. So don't do it right away. You have to be very well informed before using bee venom for health. You have to ask your local Apitherapy association or society, depending where you are in the world. Really get informed, because in some countries it's 100% illegal. You cannot do this. And also, even if it's legal but you do it but there's a problem, you can get into very serious problem, and all people using it, then there will be laws against it and so on. So just be really careful using bee venom. But it's important that you know, and it can be used for health. I'll give a couple examples: arthritis, MS, multiple sclerosis, and of course Lyme disease as well. So there's quite a few. Not that many studies on this topic because it's so tricky as a product and so on. So very difficult to tell so much about it, but at least you know that it can be very useful. In some cases, it did really miracles. And again, before using it, please contact your association so you know exactly what is legal, what isn't, and what you can do, what is safe, how to use it, and all this. Get informed before using it, or just don't use it, but at least you know about it. Okay, so that's fire. Now the fire is burning the wood, let's say, and after the fire, when it's over, well, all this energy goes back to earth. So now we're with the earth energy, and earth is connected in traditional Chinese medicine with that mid-season that is kind of in between every main season, let's say, and so it's kind of accompanying everything. And that's exactly what honey does. Honey is loved by our entire body. You can use honey pretty much everywhere in your body. It's amazing. Of course, we can eat it, very simple, that everybody know. But then you can also put it on burns, put it on open wounds, but you need clean honey. Don't use any honey. Use, of course, an organic honey and all this. And again, there are ways to do this. Learn with your local Apitherapy association how to use it in details. We'll do also videos with time on those topics, but there's so much in Apitherapy, we'll never cover everything. So yeah, so of course it can be used on wounds, but it also can be used for example, there's one research that has been done at some point where there was tumors removed from the brain, and then before closing everything up, they were filling it with honey. So it can be applied even in places like this. It can be applied also for cataracts in the eyes. But again, there's a way to do this. Don't just do it like this. And there's some kind of protocol really to follow. It's very, very important. You could hurt yourself. Don't do that. Learn more before doing things. You can ask questions, of course, on the channel through the comments. and I can help you, direct you to get the proper information. Yeah, so it can be used pretty much everywhere in our body. There's even transfusion of honey in some countries. They do transfusion of honey in the blood, in our system. It's just amazing how honey is accepted by our body. It's loved by our body, and same thing also can be done with products. Like you can use honey as a base to put many other things in it. You can add essential oils to honey, and that will actually help the essential oils to have a better impact. They'll be more powerful. You can also do maceration with honey. Add some herbs and do a maceration. So you can even add all bee products in honey, and the honey will preserve the quality of the bee products as a base. So honey is just that sweet, wonderful substance that totally corresponds to earth, because that earth is stable. Also, honey will never turn bad. It will take thousands of years. So it's that very stable energy of earth that is sweet, correspond to the flavor of the element earth in traditional Chinese medicine, and that suits collaborations with others, can be used. It suits also that interseason connected with the element earth in traditional Chinese medicine. So let's go to the next element. So we had earth, and then earth, part of earth will get more dense. We'll select some elements in earth to get to the element metal. So metal is an element that allows a certain type of separation that we didn't have before, because metal first is very hard, but also it nothing go through, not even air, not even water, nothing is going through metal really. So that metal is some kind of protection. So that's the element here, and it's connected with because there's organs also connected with elements, and that is connected to at least one organ, which is the lungs. And our lungs are a place where there's a separation between air, the air we breathe in, and our body. So it's kind of a barrier. It's kind of a place where some things will be filtered actually. Some things, yes, okay, we'll be able to choose what goes in, what doesn't, because we have a barrier. We have some kind of a border happening here. So that's the element metal. And in the beehive, what would correspond to metal? Of course, propolis. The bees actually create a full envelope of propolis in nature around their beehive, and they would love to do this also with beekeepers when possible. So they do this. They do what we call a propolis envelope, and that preserves the beehive from bacteria, viruses, funguses, and so on. So it's a real protection against invaders through all those forms. So that propolis is really just like an armor actually, just like a metal armor that a knight would have. It's just the same idea. And it actually, there's even active volatile ingredients in propolis that are actually filling the air. So through the lungs, we breathe the air. Well, the beehive with that propolis, they fill the air to clean it with those active ingredients from propolis. So they clean that air from microbes and so on. So their air is clean, so they can breathe it in safely. So it's that barrier. It's totally connected. And also propolis is the substance from the beehive that will become the harder. When it's cold, it gets really hard. And just like metal, if it gets warmed up, it does get liquid. But if you let it cool down, and even like you cool it a lot, it will get really hard. Yeah, so that's totally such a good connection there. But they're all really precise. So that's metal. And metal, since it creates that barrier, then the next element will be water, because that barrier of metal can actually receive water and allow water to create a certain amount of water that is not just diluted everywhere and spreading everywhere. Just in earth it doesn't work, it just go everywhere. And metal really is the element that then allows water to form, to really be there as a mass of water. So that water element is really, really precious. That's why we have a metal cup to hold that water, because it's precious. So it needs to be enclosed somehow. It needs to be kept in metal. So we have that water there, and how precious is that? In traditional Chinese medicine, water is connected with that basin of energy which comes from our ancestors. So it's connected to our genealogy. It's connected to that fertility energy, that we give that energy that we have. And this is a principle of traditional Chinese medicine, that basin of life energy that comes from our ancestors, and it touches the idea of fertility, and then we can give life. And it's that water. You know how water is connected to life. So in traditional Chinese medicine, water is that energy that is so precious, because if you lose it all, you won't be able to replenish it, because it's kind of a gift coming from your ancestors that is just there, and it's very strong and powerful, and it gives you that drive in your life. You know, when a father or mother have a new kid, they have such a strong life energy, they have more motivation to do everything. It's that water energy that is there really alive around them, and that gives them all that support. And when people get depressive, it's because that water energy is going down. That water energy is not flowing well. It's not, or maybe there's a leak in that cup, you know, that metal cup. Maybe they have a leak of that energy and they don't keep it, so their drive, their very deep energy is affected by it. So in the beehive, what would connect to that element? Of course, royal jelly. Royal jelly, you know it, when a female bee larvae is fed only with royal jelly, it actually affects its genes, and it changes that worker bee larvae into a queen bee. It's able to transform a regular bee into a queen bee that is actually the mother of all the bees in a beehive. So it has 100% of that water energy that comes from the ancestors, and that will be flowing through life after, through this queen bee. The queen bee, of course, will be laying more than 2,000 eggs per day in full season. So it's humongous how they hold that water energy into the royal jelly. And also there's a lot of study that have been done, well, not lots, but there are some studies that have been done with using royal jelly for fertility problems, and it really does help. So it's totally connected with that fertility issue. So it's also connected to memory, and memory is part of that water energy. So this is just amazing, that little connection between water and royal jelly. So now that we had a look at all those 5 elements connected with the bee products, I think that from now on you won't see the bee products the same way as before. When you think about pollen, you know it's wood. You know it's there to allow growth. If you leave it in nature, the pollen, it will fertilize a flower, then it will grow, fruit, seeds, plants, it will grow, it will keep growing, it will do more pollen, you know, it's a full cycle that always keeps growing all the time. So pollen is fully wood element. The bee venom, how clear is that? It's fire. It's so obvious, and so on. You know, we looked at all of them, how honey is nice, how we can use it everywhere, how it's just that interseason that goes in between all other seasons, how it's used all the time, and it's sweet. So you get a better idea of all those products, what effect they have, and how they work. When you think about propolis, you know it's that metal energy that is there to protect, that is there to create a barrier, that is there to, and create your armor, your immune system. Love propolis. Now you know, because you see the element it's connected with. So you see all those connections, extremely precious in apitherapy, and it's also connecting us with the subtlety of all the elements. So thank you very much for watching. And please subscribe, comment, share with your friends. It's really nice to get this channel going because there's a lot of other topics to talk about. We're just scratching the surface for now. There's so many more things to talk about. So thank you very much for watching, and see you another time for another Apitherapy video.